Welcome back into the Sports Source. This segment brought to you by A.G. Hines Company. Sports Source has been around for 2 decades now. I'm very proud of that. I can't imagine a business run so well, so lockstep with its community and its neighbors, that it could survive 10 decades. That is just awe-inspiring, but that's exactly what A.G. Hines Company has done. More than 100 years. They are a remarkable story. There aren't many companies like that in the United States. If you need building materials, visit A.G. Hines Company right downtown Knoxville. You can also visit them at aghines.com. If you got a do-it-yourself project, start it at A.G. Hines Company. Okay, mentioned it in the last segment. Wide receiver Velus Jones was tabbed by the Chicago Bears in the NFL draft recently. Receiver Javonte Payton signed as an undrafted free agent with the Arizona Cardinals. Since converting to the Art Briles-style offense, Josh Heupel's teams, this includes him as an offensive coordinator at Missouri and Utah State, since he went to that system, he has put 5 different wide receivers into the league as draft picks. I didn't go back and count the undrafted guys, but 5 draft picks. I went back and looked at Art Briles' system at Baylor in the 8 years he was there. He had 6 receivers taken by NFL teams. Everybody puts all kinds of guys into the pros, but there is a strong tie to that offense and wide receivers showcasing their skills at this level. The interesting thing is, most of the receivers in that offense, however, because it's set up so differently, go into the NFL and have to learn about read and react routes, have to learn the full route tree because they don't use it in this system. But by golly, it showcases speed and big playability, and the NFL teams say, I can work with that. Give me that clay, I'll mold it. For that reason, I asked it as we went to break, is Tennessee really about to be wide receiver U again? We talked about it. Used to happen in the 80s. They've tried to sell themselves as that in recent years when, it wasn't the case. Now you're getting transfers in from USC. You're getting possibly from UCF. You're getting the recruits to sign. Are you about to buy the wide receiver U moniker?
I would say Tennessee can realistically make a run at it again. They need higher level draft picks because what Ohio State has done, producing on the field and then sending guys to the first round of the draft. Alabama, when in 2019 had 4 first rounders in the same offense at that position. LSU, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. So Tennessee's offense will produce on the field. If they then send those guys to the highest level in the draft, you can start to make a run at Alabama, Ohio State, LSU, Clemson, tried to as well.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's about that second contract. That's where I think you get that moniker.
For the coach or the players?
For the players. When you get there. The draft picks are nice, but when you have guys that are thriving in the league.
Their contract in the league or their contract in college?
Good question. But yeah, when you have guys that are thriving in the league, I think that really goes to see what you can do. Because I think you look at this system, Treylon Burks with the Titans will be a really interesting case of a guy that is one of those top-level guys coming from this offense that has changed a little bit, but still it's basically like you speak Russian and you go into the NFL and try to learn Japanese in a lot of ways. It's very, very different. So it'll be interesting, but I think ultimately if you have production and you have speed and you have those big guys and you're routinely having a couple 1,000-yard receivers a year, maybe you're not wide receiver U, but maybe you're in the conversation. I think Tennessee can get to that point because the offense is going to be pretty lethal.
Well, Jawan Jennings might be able to pay you off from the pass and kind of add to that category. If he does continue to progress, Heupel in Tennessee as a school get more credit for that.
Mm-hmm. I'm kind of in Josh's camp, but you need to get higher draft picks to do that. Look, Tennessee's had a receiver drafted each of the last 3 rounds, but they were in the 3rd round, the 5th round, I think the 6th round. And Alabama and LSU are having first-round picks. I'd even put Ole Miss ahead of Tennessee at this point with receivers that they have produced. But with this offense, it's going to give you the chance to catch up with those and maybe become wide receiver U again. But to me, you got to have higher draft picks to be in that conversation.
As usual, I'm Mr. Sunshine, Mr. Positive. These guys are the rain on the parade guys. All right, that's a first. In general, UT had 5 guys drafted. A little better than people expected. There was some debate as to whether Theo Jackson would go, and he did. With the exception of Cade Mays, who probably would have gone even if you still had Jeremy Pruitt here.
And even higher.
Maybe.
Maybe.
I don't know if any of these other guys would have been drafted without Josh Heupel and this staff. Alontae Taylor has some skills, but I'm not so sure Pruitt wouldn't have thrown him under the bus again and again as he did when he was here. Jimmy, I think you got at least 4 guys in this class who can thank this staff and this coach for taking their potential and creating enough to get them drafted.
I agree. So if these players had come out and they were available last year, I don't think Taylor gets drafted. I don't think Velus Jones get drafted. He didn't do enough the previous year to put his name in the draft to me. And I don't think Butler would have been drafted. I think Rodney Garner did a really good job with him. And I think Willie Martinez with Theo Jackson, they found the star position for him, the nickelback position, and he thrived. So I think there are 4 players that were drafted that probably would not have been drafted the year before because of this staff. So I think, and to me, that's a big selling point too in recruiting.
Yes, absolutely. Vince?
I kind of think that a couple of those guys would be drafted. I mean, I was hearing about the interest and liking of Matthew Butler prior to last year, and then the system and the development of Rodney Garner. Obviously, he had his best year. I think Alontae Taylor might have been a fringe guy to potentially be drafted also. So I don't know about 4, but I do think that they definitely helped their draft stock. Even if they were going to be drafted, I think they elevated their draft stock for sure.
Yeah, I think the 2 that stand out are Velus Jones with his production and being able to showcase some of his natural skills. And then Matthew Butler, you guys hit on it. He went from having literally no defensive line coach for like 3/4 of a season to having Rodney Garner. That's a pretty big gap. So, who'd have known that having an actual position coach could help you? But I guess we're learning things new every day.
And Garner has a history of putting defensive linemen in the NFL. He's already got one here. Josh, your thoughts on the coaching staff and the job they did with these guys?
Yes, starting with Heupel, Velus would be the easiest pick there because his production and the way that he was used easily made a jump. He's a guy that took advantage of an extra year, seeing Heupel come in and coming back to Tennessee. Alontae, he's a second-round pick, so I'm guessing he would have gone somewhere, maybe not that high though. So it was a perfect combination of the staff coming in, right fits with somebody like Rodney Garner and Matthew Butler, who was already respected and put in so much work. So the timing worked out for those players for sure.
And how good of a decision was it for Alontae to sit out the bowl game to get healthy? I mean, it paid off for him big time.
Yeah, because it worked out really well.
Absolutely.
All right, coming up next. Can't have any kind of sunshine around here. We're having some clouds. The Tennessee baseball team. It's just embarrassing. It's unbelievable. We'll talk about what's gone wrong. Vince, I want to see if you're going to hit the panic button. Let's talk Tennessee baseball next.